Okay, great. Great. All right. I've got things to say, you all. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine that? I've got things to say. Okay, so this is going to be our final call for um for Worthy and Wealthy Week. I want to do some more practice with you all. We have some questions to answer. And the biggest thing on my heart to share the biggest thing on my heart to share is I want to talk about really truly shifting patterns. I had this phrase come through this morning. Did I write it down? I feel like I did. I had this phrase come through this morning that was like, I love the people who can sit in the fire of their discomfort and like face to face with their patterns, the patterns that are not any more helpful, the things that they are doing and the ways they are showing up, they're perpetuating results that they do not want. That they're like, no, this actually sucks. This actually is not comfortable. This actually is not fun. This is, and recognizing like, this is coming from my disempowerment. This is coming from me being protective of myself. This is coming from me outsourcing my power. This is coming from me, whether that be to a person, to money, to a coach, to your partner, whatever it is. It's true in relationships and it's also true in money. One of my friends who I really admire, over the weekend I was at a retreat and she was like, we can't expect anything from anyone. That's selfish. We can like, yes, we can set standards and boundaries for what we can accept. We can never force anyone to do anything. And it's the same with money, right? We can set standards and boundaries and be like, and also be the person who's showing up for that. But we can never be like, oh, can you just show up for me? Can you just do it? Can I just like affirm my way to you? And I really feel like, I don't know about you all, but for me, things haven't actually changed in my life until I got sick of it enough. Until there was a moment where I was like, you know what? And that anger was like the power coming back, being like, you know what? It's a no for me, dog. It's a no for me. Little little American Idol reference there, anyone? Anyone? All right, great. Bueller, Bueller. All right, just references on references. Okay, I'm gonna reel it in. There has always like I had this with money. I had this with money. I'll always remember that reference. Great. Yeah. Um, when it came to money, when it came to scaling my business, I'm going through it with relationships. I've been going through it. I've been in a big portal of like being like, okay, like what do I actually want to experience in partnership and how do I like freaking do my inner work to be like, you know what? I'm a sovereign human being who like creates the kind of results that I want, who is capable of transformation in all areas. And it's really required me to get to this point where I'm like, no, it's a no. And I'm going to apply myself. I'm going to apply myself and learn and like practice and create these patternings in my nervous system and all of this kind of stuff. And it was the same with money. I had to get to this point where I was like, no, like, no, this is not it. This is not what I want. And I'm not going to just be like, oh, well, it's the clients, it's the systems, it's my parents, it's the whatever it is. Like, this is the moment where, and maybe you've had these moments before and you have to do it again. Great, great. Where you take your power back and you step into your sovereign adult, like capable ass self and you apply yourself and you learn And you take the time that it takes, right? It also requires grace because changing a pattern takes time, it takes repetition, it literally takes training your nervous system, training your perspectives, doing shadow work, um, being able to again and again come back to the truth and anchor that into your body, right? And be able to act from that too. It requires a lot of unknown because if you're used to doing things a certain way, but then you're trying them another way, right? Like with money, if you're used to pinching every penny, or if you're used to, um, spending beyond your means, if you're used to not spending on things that you actually enjoy and that will like feel really nourishing, if you're used to not getting support, right? When you start to lean into those things, it can feel like you're dying. And that's because, in a way, it's true. It's true. One thing that I really had to recognize as money was starting to come into my life and my life was changing and I was getting all the things that I had prayed for, right? That there was a grieving that had to occur, of a dying out of all of the ways that I had been, the attachments I had, um, the people some people had to exit my life. Some, like, I like moved across the country during that time. And so I think we just have to be really clear that if it's, especially at first, especially if it's a big deep rooted pattern or there's a lot of charge or density around it, if it's uncomfortable at first, like that's a good sign. That's actually a good sign. And then over time, what you're going to do is those patterns will start to resolve, and they'll start to be like, oh, this isn't actually helpful anymore, this isn't actually true. And then you're training, I like to call it detox the nurse, right? That's what your body's constantly doing anyway. You just are making it, like, you're creating an environment um, a space for your body and like a way of operating that your body can detox and nourish around money, right? You can do that with your health. If you're someone who, you go to a cold plunge or a sauna or you work out or you eat well, that is helping your body detox and nourish, right? Like clear out the the like clear out the poop, like clear out the stuff, like clear out the stuff, and then to take in new life, right? And so that's what we want to learn how to do with money, is put ourselves in an environment to create habits and patterns and rituals where we are detoxing the old ways of operating that are not serving anymore, the ways that keep, you know, you stuck in patterns of scarcity, whether that be like we talked about on the first call, whether that be emotional or tangible, that keep, debt happening, that keep you in feast and famine cycles, that keep, like, whatever it is that's happening, or like, making just enough, whatever it is that's happening that you're like, not like, nah, this isn't it. You're going to learn how to detox that and be like, no, okay, it's not true. My nervous system doesn't have to be acclimated to that, and I'm going to learn to acclimate to wealth, right? The kind of wealth that's aligned with you, that's aligned with your values, that's aligned with your gifts, right? And that's going to look different for everyone. It might be like more advancement in your career. It might be like, um, starting or scaling a business. It might be, so for some people, I've worked with people who literally scale back their businesses and so that they have more spaciousness, right? And are like, actually, I don't have to make as much money because I was fixated on that and I was attached to that, and but it's just burning me out and wearing me out, right? And you train over time, again, your nervous system, your perspectives, your state, your default state, to be one. And I truly believe that this is so accessible for everyone because it's the core of who you are, right? Peace, empowerment, wisdom, period. That is who you are. Love, wisdom, power. Like, that is who you are. That is actually who you are. And when you let that guide your experience of money, And then also like that operating from there is going to help you learn all the skill, because you're not going to go out and be shaming yourself and being like, oh, I have to budget because Dave Ramsey told me I have to budget, and because this person told me I shouldn't get a coffee every day, or whatever it is. You're not going to be like shaming yourself into learning the skills. You're not going to be like pressuring yourself to do all those things. A lot of times that comes organically. Like for me, I had to do a lot of healing before I got to the point where I even felt worthy of investing. You know, I could have started investing, but I probably, if I had shamed and pushed myself into it, I probably would have just drained it, because I didn't actually have that patterning in my nervous system to be someone who held wealth. If I had done it from this place of shame, but I let myself resolve these patterns where I was like, no, I'm not good enough to invest. I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm not capable. And there's all these things that have to happen, and let myself get to the point where I was like, wait, no, I am worthy and capable. I can learn how to do it. I can get support. I can have extra money. I can have long-term like support, retirement funds, all of that. And that actually feels normal and ready. So I found that like when you learn how to do the things, you don't have to again shame yourself, pressure yourself, be like, I should do these things. When you do the inner work and you're training your nervous system, you're like opening up to, again, to your natural state of wisdom, love, and power when it comes to money. Those things are going to come more organically. And then it's going to stay. It's going to stay. It's going to be like there to support you. It's going to be something that, again, isn't a feast and famine cycle, that is regenerative, and that you continue doing again and again and again. Um, yeah. So that's the biggest thing I really want you to know. Like, I feel like when we understand how, like, I really saw this with you know, I experienced a like acute trauma a couple years ago, right? And I had had a bunch of childhood trauma that I started healing when I was 15 years old. And it took me a long ass time. It took me a long ass time to work with it, because I didn't know how, I didn't know the skills, I didn't know what it felt like to be on the other side of that. I didn't know it was really even possible. And so it took a long time of me kind of bumbling around and being like, what is happening here? And a lot of it I was doing, it really got easier and easier when I got more support and I had people who could guide me and support me in it and be like, oh, this is normal. Oh, this is a skill you can use or a tool you can apply, right? Because for a while I was mainly doing self healing, which was great. That kept me from like a lot of, I made a lot of progress during that time, but it got easier when I got support. So when I had this trauma happen again a couple years ago, because, well, first of all, I immediately went out and got support, immediately, like immediately, immediately, to the point where I reached out. Do I have lipstick all the way too? Okay, anyway, classic. I remember excuse me, one of the teachers who I reached out to, and a therapist who I reached out to, were both like, I love you and I see that you want to heal, but you're like actually still in it. Like it's still happening. You're like in a crisis. And so let's just like stabilize you through the crisis. Cause I was like, all right, let's heal it. We're good. Let me heal it. You know, bless me. But it really helped me. Like I was able to work with it. And the feedback I get over and over again is that it, like, I was able to move through it with I'll say relative ease and quickness. But it's because I had already done so much of this work that I just was like, oh, I know the process of this. I know what it feels like to be triggered. I know what a PTSD response feels like. Great. And I can catch it and I can work with it. And I have the tools and I have the skills and I have the support. So that's really what I want you all to hear from all of this, because when you understand the process of how it actually looks like to change your patterns with money. And money is such a dense one. Honestly, like when I'm looking at my experience of wanting to change my patternings around relationship, it helps me that I've changed my patterns around my experience of myself and my experience of money and my experience of business. Like when you know how to transform, you can apply that in so many areas of your life. You really can. And it might be a little different, right? They all have a bit of a different flavor. And like you still have to apply yourself. You still have to learn the skills that go along with that kind of relationship. But there's also going to be some things that overlap, right? So this is the biggest thing I want you to hear right now is like what this process looks like, because one of the biggest things I see over and over and over again is that people will maybe get a little bit of progress and then slide back down. Like they'll maybe take like a 1 month course or like a 6 week course and then like stop doing that work, right? Or make progress kind of like I had to learn this. I had to learn this. I have to learn. I feel like I have to learn everything kind of the hard way sometimes, but that's I'm wise, I guess. Anyway, from all of my lessons, that's not true. I don't always have to learn everything the hard way. I won't say that, but I had to learn this the hard way. This is one thing I had to learn the hard way. I made a ton of progress doing like very consistent money work for years. And then I got to the point where I was very like consistently making a lot of money. And then I stopped doing the money work. I stopped doing it. I kind of got a little like um weird about it and like judgmental of it, which is interesting because I like teach it. And but it like wasn't spiritual enough for me. This was a time that I soon after a lot of my teachers helped me to be like, okay, no, let's actually integrate your worldly and spiritual lives and not have you be so like these have to conflict or one's better than the other. And which I've noticed happens a lot for people who are interested in a spiritual path or in spirituality or whatever it is. So yeah, I got to this point where I didn't want to do the money work anymore. I didn't want to track my finances. I didn't want to like check in with my accounts. I didn't want to be intimate with money. I didn't want to keep working with my nervous system and my like my identity around money. And my business started like being like kind of struggling a little bit, but more than that, I started feeling conflicted. I started feeling ungrateful. I started feeling frustrated. And I tuned in. I remember very clearly this visceral moment of tuning in with money, the practice that we did from the first call. And I was like, oh, money was like the message that I was getting was basically like, oh no, you can't just get to a point and then cruise, baby. Like that's entitlement. That's entitlement. And so one of the biggest things I've learned, and this is why wealthy is lifetime access, why I changed that, is that you have to keep doing it. If you want to sustain this relationship, and it's not a bad, like, that's not a bad thing. It's not like this, like, oh, it's responsibility. If you want a house, you're going to have to take care of it. If you want a business, you're going to have to take care of it. If you want a relationship, you're going to have to take care of it. If you want money, you're going to have to take care of it, both the relationship and the funds. And so it's not only like the process is going to be training yourself to be someone who can be in this long-term relationship of consistency. And sometimes that means doing the same thing or getting bored. So often, how often have you seen yourself be in a relationship? Has anybody done this? I've done this, where the relationship was really actually smooth sailing and I sabotaged it because it felt uncomfortable for me to have that level of um, ease and that level of consistency. Like I felt like something was wrong. So you're training yourself to experience safety. You're training yourself to experience consistency, to experience peace, right? To experience like, oh, we're good. There's not something I need to fix. There's not some big problem. There's not something like that wrong, like we're good. And then you're training yourself to be responsible, to be capable, to be committed long term. If you're an entrepreneur, a business owner, this is so important as well. right? If you're going from that space where you've maybe been throwing spaghetti at the wall to being like, actually, I want to have a really long-term, regenerative, easeful business. It's training yourself over and over again to be in that state and to move from that state and to move from that intention. And again, it does mean I caught myself doing that once or twice a year with Fred. Yeah, in the first year or two, it was like more often. Thankfully, I realized it for what it was and I didn't give up on something so good. Yeah. 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 Oh, I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, I did that when I was nowhere near ready, but I was dating this guy when I was like 21. And for 2 years, I was so bored. I thought he was boring, but really he was just a chill dude who didn't have trauma. LOL. And and he was like, eventually he was like, we should talk about getting married. And I broke up with him on the spot. I was like, no. And like within 3 days, I started dating someone else. And it was like some dude I had to like chase who like didn't really want me, you know? I was like, I did that too. So we do that with money. We're like, no, it's too good. It's too like things are too calm. And so it's also knowing your sabotage patterns and being able to check them and being like, because I promise you, they'll keep coming up. They'll come up again and it's okay. But you don't have to fully heal everything. You don't have to fully like, you don't have to get to this place of perfection, right? You don't have to, have all of your patterns resolved or um, be unbothered and untriggered all the time, like whatever. You can still have that stuff come up, but when you know how to work, when you have an awareness of it and you're like, oh, this is the moment. I was talking about this with the Heart Led Business Collective a couple weeks, like maybe last week or the week before. I noticed that around my luteal phase, like I actually didn't even recognize those my luteal phases last time. I recognized first that I was having this moment of feeling like nothing in my business was working and I needed to burn it all down and completely do something entirely different. Or like I have a really clear strategy and a really clear long-term vision right now. And there was a part of me that was like, let's actually completely change what we're doing. And then I was like, wait, you're about to start bleeding like tomorrow. And that's not reality. Like, let's not do that. So being able to catch them is super important. Super, super, super important. Okay, I'm going to answer some of these questions. Yeah, that was me in college. I was nowhere near ready to get married. Absolutely not. Okay. If you are here, so I'm going to answer these questions that are here in the chat box or in the Telegram. If you have any questions and you're here live, you can either, in a minute after I answer these, you can either drop them in the chat box or you'll be able to unmute yourself. Okay. La, la, la. All right. My question is for someone who has been practicing abundance through energy and financial outflow, okay, but doesn't have the tangible funds to back it up, therefore creating a lot of debt. What is the best tangible first step to shift things? I don't want to stop practicing abundance and come from scarcity, but I do want to be anchored in reality and creating tangible change in the amount of funds I have available. Okay. So let's talk about that. So okay, so the thing that has helped me the most and that I've seen help people a lot is being able to work with paradoxes. So when it comes to, so great, you're practicing abundance, you're letting funds go in ways that you know are going to support you and come back to you. That's great. So I feel like the paradox here that would be helpful is holding and working with this energy of like two things can be true at the same time. That's what a paradox is, right? Two things can be true at the same time. You can be grateful for the debt that you've accumulated. You can be grateful. And I that's one of the first things I teach with anyone who is trying to clear off debt is actually practicing gratitude for it and practicing sovereignty with it, being like, I chose this, right? Even if it was through a challenge or a struggle, being like, okay, I had access to this and I chose this, right? I chose this. I'm grateful for it. It has supported me in XYZ ways. Right. And even sometimes like naming that off and being like, this is where this came from. And I chose that. And I'm grateful for that. Right. And maybe some of them were lessons. And you can also be grateful for the lessons, being like, great, that's clear. I didn't actually need that. That came from this place that was more wounded or whatever. And I'm learning. Great. And I'm grateful for that. And holding the energy of, it depends. Like you get to ask yourself, do you want to keep accumulating debt or no? Do you want to keep accumulating debt or no? If the answer is no, then you start to be like, okay, I'm going to create this standard. This is that moment of like when things are done. You're done with something, right? Like, like I am done. There has to be a moment and you have to come back to it again and again, right? You have to like reestablish the boundary, reestablish the pattern. I am done with accumulating more debt. Doesn't mean that that's going to happen immediately. Not necessarily. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it takes continuing to be like, wait, no, that's not who I am. That's not what we're doing. I'm actually really done with that. And training, again, it's really important. You can say these things out loud, but it's really important to actually stop and like notice how it feels in your body. Notice the resistances and let your body thematically and energetically. And this is why like there's practices that we can do around it. Any of the practices I've shared already, but we do a ton more in Wealthy, right? um but like training yourself to be like, actually no, that's not what I'm doing. And so what am I doing instead? I'm making enough money. I am making more than enough. I am spending within my means. And maybe that means spending less than I have been and tracking my finances more closely. Maybe that means cutting back my expenses. And sometimes it can mean both, right? Sometimes it can mean cutting back your expenses. Sometimes it can mean making more. Sometimes it can be both, right? And so training, I really feel like, again, it's so important to do this every day, not just, especially if you're really wanting to make a change, to get into a habit of it every day so that it becomes a way of being, right? So it becomes ingrained in who you are. And the next thing you know, like a lot of times when I'm doing money work now, it just comes up organically. I'll notice it in the moment and I'll be like, oh, and I'll just lead myself through a quick practice. It's more like maintenance, right? And then sometimes there's other periods where I'm wanting to create a big shift. Like if I'm, doing a focused launch, or if I'm like wanting to create some change in my life, I'll put more energy into it, right? But it's really important to stay consistent with it and to keep feeling into, okay, I'm going to create this different reality. What does that feel like? What would the options be for that? And you'll start and letting that lead. You'll have ideas. You might be more encouraged to sell your stuff. You might be more confident in it. You might feel more fire come up into your system of like, I can do this, but letting that lead and doing that consistently again and again and again. Okay, and you're saying I don't want to stop practicing abundance and come from scarcity. I also feel like I've seen so many money like teachings that I don't necessarily agree with. And I will tell you that I've also been close with a lot of people who have taught money in this way and have seen behind the scenes of their finances, of like this kind of like just abundance over everything. Spend whatever you want because that's abundant. Go into debt because that's abundant. Sure, that can be true. Like multiple things can be true, but that kind of keeps this cycle going of like, okay, so I'm always playing catch up. I'm always needing to make more. I all of that. I actually feel like for me, and you could decide what's true for you. It Me tracking my finances and spending within my means is not scarcity. It's not scarcity. For me, it's actually more honoring of money and more, and sometimes that does mean great, I want to make more because I want to be able to spend more. For me, and that's how I've been able to like sustain wealth as well, is spending within my means and letting that be abundant. And then it got to the point where, like, for a while I was spending as much as I was making. And then it got to the point where I was like, oh, I actually want to build wealth. And so I spent below my means so that I could invest more. And again, that doesn't mean, okay, you just can't get what you want and you can't take care of yourself and you have to live this like pinching pennies and eating beans and rice lifestyle. That can mean that you can make more. You can make more. You can always make more. You can always make more. There's always more money. I said this yesterday on the Heart Lab. Was this in the Heart Lab? Yeah, it was. I was like, there's infinite amount of clients. My clients are literally being born right now. They're literally being conceived right now. The money that I want is being printed right now. There's always more. There's always more. But are you open to it? Are you open to your business being successful? Are you open to being paid? Are you doing what that takes? Are you selling? Are your offers clear? All of that. Yeah. Okay. So the next question, let me make sure yeah, I want to be anchored in reality and creating tangible change in the amount of funds I have available. Yeah. So it's really putting your energy into like, I'm going to make more money. I'm going to make more money, you know? Again, there has to be like a standard and a boundary. And I feel like sometimes when we reach that moment, we kind of have to have a moment of being like, no, you know what? No. And I remember that with money. I remember having that feeling of being no, like, no, I don't, I don't want to just stay in here, like not making enough or making barely anything or having a high month and having a low month. And again, like setting these standards, sometimes like writing down the standards, being like, this is actually my standard for money. I'm doing this with relationships more right now, being like, this is the standard for the kind of person I want to be with. And like, if it's not it, I'm not going to be like, it's okay. You know, I'm going to standard. Okay. Yes, it's the things we choose for ourselves, I think. And this really is why, like, worthy and wealthy, it really is this level of worth and being like, I'm worth that. I'm worth that. Like, and sometimes when we are setting this standard, like part of it too, like when I set the standard for the kind of person I want to be in with in a relationship, it can illuminate. I think of wait, just give me. I'm gonna tell him to go away. Okay, I'm back. Yeah, my shower is clogged and someone's coming to fix it. But I was like, okay, anyway, what was I saying? Oh, yeah. What was I saying? I know the general gist. It also illuminates the places where I'm actually not, again, it's not about inherent worth, but where I'm not meeting that. Like in like money. Let's go back to the last sample. Say you don't want to have debt and you want to be making more. Great. You're inherently worthy of that. 100%. You're inherently worthy of that. But paradox here, paradox, we love paradoxes. Does that require you to be, what does it mean to be a match for something? A match does not just mean, okay, I'm going to feel that I'm worthy of it. Like, yes, do that, but also look at ourselves honestly and be like, am I actually being that person? Am I being the person who is selling my offers? Am I being the person who's making sure my offers are really good? And this we have to watch because it can kind of go both ways, right? A lot of times we avoid the places like the work that you're avoiding, the thing that you're avoiding is often the place that you actually could rise up and meet it more. The places where we fixate and be like, oh, well, I'll just get another certification, or like, oh, I'll just post 5 billion more times, or whatever it is the distraction and the place that you are like fixating that if I just do more, it's not about that. It's being able to discern where you're actually doing enough and showing up enough and trusting that, and where you can actually rise up and meet more, right? So looking at ourselves and being like, great, I'm inherently worthy, and there's some places where I could do better. And that's why that practice with money, where you tune in with money and see like what is the guidance for you, is really, really good, really solid. Okay. It's the things we choose to ourselves. I think I've told you this one before, but I was concerned shaming myself last year when I looked at my budget and saw my dining out monthly spend. But when I looked at it, dining out was quality time with friends and family. It was super important time, and I didn't want to give up, but I could instead choose less expensive places, or one less appetizer or whatever to offset. Yeah, totally. And I've had those moments. It's all about our values and it's going to flux. That's why, again, it's a relationship that we have to keep tuning into, because like for instance, when I was first wanting to build wealth and I was noticing, okay, I'm making more money, but still the amount of money that's coming in is also going out. I was like, I did this thing, and I actually have everybody do this in Wealthy, where you sit down and you look at your previous 3 months of expenses, and you notice patterns. You notice anything that doesn't feel good. You notice patterns, right? And I noticed that I was spending a lot more money on eating out. And I actually felt really not good about how much I was spending. And it was more of just like this lazy way of me, like, and I actually didn't even feel good as I was like eating out. You know what I mean? It didn't actually feel good. It felt reciprocal, and it felt rushed, and it felt like, um, it didn't feel good, right? And so I like scaled that back a lot. Where there was another time, like a couple years later, where I actually opened up to eating out more, and was like going to restaurants that felt really nourishing, and like was making plenty of money, so that felt really good. And so allowing myself to enjoy, allowing myself to be taken care of. So it's going to flux and change over time. Yeah. And that's why it's important to like keep doing this work. Again, that's why Wealthy's Life Time Access and Jenny here has been doing this since 2019. And yeah, you're kicking ass. You're kicking ass. Okay. The next question I have. Go. Okay, great. Um, I'm someone who experiences wild abundance and immense generosity. Yeah, I could name off a bunch of Ginny's wins, but like Ginny's really, you've done a lot. You've done a lot. And that's why, yeah. I mean, but that's what it doesn't end. Like it doesn't end. You know what's gonna like we're gonna be 60, 70 and be like, oh great, now it's time to retire, and we have a whole different experience of money. It doesn't end, right? So yeah, I love your commitment. I love your consistency. I love your commitment. Absolutely. Rock and roll. Let's go. Okay. Anyway, I'm someone who experiences wild abundance and immense generosity on a consistent basis in unexpected ways, being generously gifted many gifts, opportunities, trainings, tools for my purpose that cost a lot of money. And yet, when it comes to actually making money, making of money, I feel unclear on how to allow this level of ease and joy to translate into my finances. I've recognized energy is energy, and I'm receiving so much, it boggles my mind sometimes, but I am very, very grateful for it all. I've done a ton of work to learn how to find safety within myself, regardless of how much is in my bank account. And yet, I'm also aware I'm not living in full integrity with money in the world of wait. I'm also aware if I wait. I'm also aware I'm not living in full integrity with money from and in the world of debt, taxes, credit card, bank accounts, etc. Nature is a huge teacher for me. Love that. Me too. In all this, and I feel very connected to how you've been speaking about a lot of things. Okay, great. Heard. So yeah, I guess my question is something around how to discover the block, assuming there is one, around why I'm able to be so abundant. Sorry, I just got distracted. I have a funny story that I'm not gonna tell. I'm not gonna tell it. Do you all wanna know it? Do you wanna know what just happened in my brain? So, if you all have been around for a while, Forrest has been a little sick. I'm trying to figure out he's having some tummy issues. He's like almost 10, and I'm waiting to get some test results back, and he's having some bathroom issues. And there's like a he like right before this call, I noticed there's like a tiny bit of like poop on the floor, which he has not done up until this moment. It's like a tiny bit. And I like saw a reflection in my hand and had like a panic of like, did I get it on my hand? I haven't cleaned it up because it's like it's so tiny. But what I saw my hand and like had a moment of like, oh my god, is there poop on my hand? Like that's just what happened in my brain. So that was great. Anyone who's on my calls consistently knows like there's at least gonna be prepared. Do not work with me if you don't want 2 minutes out of every hour devoted to me talking about Forest. Okay, just don't do it. Just save yourself the time. This is what this is the way my brain works too. I tell people I have squirrel brain. Yeah, I'm just what? But it's great. Yeah. Okay, so and I feel like that's how all my clients too will come and be like, I don't know if I have a question, and then they just give a ramble, and then we just like do some like magical shit with that. I'm like, I almost don't want your specific question. I just want you to like ramble, just ramble. Anyway, just kidding. Specific questions are welcome too. Okay, so I guess my question is something around how to discover the block, assuming there is one, around why I'm able to be so abundant and able to receive, yeah, but then feel blocked or thwarted when it comes to actual physical making of money. Yeah, so this is very much again there's a nature analogy coming through for this, right? It's my mind is going to like an an ecosystem has like a balance point, and if it's going to shift, which it's going to shift over time, or if it's like expanding in some way, which nature is always expanding and contracting, it has to go through this process of like recalibrating, right? And so the same thing, if water's flowing a certain direction and it's like flowing this way, if you also want it to start flowing a different way, if it's been flowing that way for a while, which I can assume that your nervous system, your body, your awareness, there's something in you that feels so solid of like, I'm taken care of. I'm taken care of. But there's something that's not solid in you of like, and I can do it myself. And it can come from my gifts and it can come from my business. So there's like the water's been running this way of like, okay, there's generosity that comes from me. I'm going to use your words. I'm gifted things like opportunities, trainings, tools for my purpose that cost a lot of money. That comes to me. That feels really like great. When you feel into abundance, that's what comes through. So that's what's going to be flowing, right? But if you're like, and I also want to open up to receive in these other ways, it's really about like training yourself to experience that is like the first thing is that it's even possible. A lot of times I notice when I'm working with clients, when we start to connect to a shift, whether that be they want to scale their business, they want to make more money, they want to make money in different ways, especially if I'm working with people who have been in burnout or all these different kind of things. um they're wanting to make more in their career, whatever it is, the first reaction to it is like, oh, that's not even a that's not even a thing. Like I can't even fathom that. Like that's something that happens to other people, or that's not even real. That's. And so you have to, I talked a bit about this on yesterday's drop. You really have to start again. This is why it's really practicing again and again, training your nervous system, which includes your the way you breathe, the way you perceive, the thoughts you think, like that's all interconnected. like your organs' reactions to things. Like that's it's all connected. That one, this is possible, and this is possible for you. And the more you believe in that possibility, then it becomes an inevitability. Then it becomes and the actions are lining up with that. With more possibility, you start to act in that way. There's a reason that I sell literally every day. It's because I not only believe it's possible, I not only believe it's inevitable, but at this point, it's just a truth for me. It is just a lived experience. But I had to move through the the like initiation of first being open to it being possible for me, right? I used to not even know it was possible to experience it at all until I started to meet entrepreneurs. I was growing up in rural Tennessee. It was not something that even saw as like a possibility. Then believing that it was possible for me, then starting to take actions, take those steps, then being like, okay, this isn't happening yet, but I'm gonna like keep working with it and trust it's inevitable. Then being like, okay, it's starting to come, but I want it to be consistent. Okay, great. Now then I want it to be like um not just consistent, but like an overflow. Great. I'm making more money. Now I want to have wealth. Great. I'm going to do that. And every single time I've had to like go through these stages of opening more and then letting my reality, right? The actions I'm taking, how I speak about myself. Like when I was first talking about my business, I would be like, I'm trying to do this business. And now my experience is I say what I do. A lot of times people are pretty curious. Like over the weekend I was at this retreat and this man who owns a like I'll just say I have multiple experiences every week of people asking me what I do and then being really impressed. Um and that was not my experience for a long time. It was me being scared and people being like, "Well, I hope that works out for you. You can always go back to being an engineer." You know? And so I had to train myself to like have the systems and structures, have the habits, have the identity, have the nervous system of someone who receives success through my business and not just receives success through my business, but receives it in the ways that I like. I like having space. I like having free time. I like enjoying what I do. I like working with the clients that I like working with, right? Because for a while I was starting to have success, but I was also like feeling really tired and drained and feeling like I had to overfunction or perform or all these kind of things. So I had to train that out of my system. So it's just constantly being like, okay, what's my next expansion? And anchoring into, yes, this is for me and this is also for the whole world. This is of service. This is that always helps me because sometimes if it's just about me, I get caught up and being like, it feels really heavy and I don't feel the support. But if I feel all the beings behind it who want my work, all of like the support from I feel the support from Mother Earth, I feel the support of my teachers, um, then it feels a lot lighter, right? I feel the support of the structures I've put in, of the habits that I have, of even having like we talked about this in Sacred Cells, like even having like a like a list of the kind of content I want to make or whatever, that it helps a lot. So it'll start to shift. But it's like intentionally shifting toward what you want, right? And again, if you like, I'll use the example of, again, I'm really working with relationships right now. That's a big thing that I'm working on, right? And having that, like, having like my business feeling really clear. There's, of course, things I'm working on in that area of the world as well. But it really helps me to anchor into that this transformation is also possible in these other areas of my life. Yeah, it's possible, it's inevitable, it's happening, but if you're putting energy into it. Mhm. All right, who does anybody else have any questions? Who's here live? Oh, one other thing I'll say too. I really also watch my languaging and my perceptions around like being like a block or a like needing a breakthrough because I feel like it just doesn't have to be that intense. Um, I really like instead being like, oh, I made this reel, actually made it on TikTok. TikTok really liked it, where I was like, if I just nurture it, it's going to shift. It's going to shift and it can shift. Like I came back from my trip and one of my plants was looking really sad and dry because it was outside, right? And I watered it and it perked back up. I nurtured it and just came immediately back to life. So it can happen fast. Sometimes it takes longer. It doesn't mean it's going to be slow. It doesn't mean that it's going to take forever, but it doesn't have to be by force. It can be very organic. Like for me, it feels very organic and it puts my body at ease to know that if I just nurture this, it's clearly gonna change. It's clearly gonna shift. It's clearly gonna grow. And if I'm nurturing it and it's like not quite shifting, okay, then I'm gonna keep, like my dog right now. I'm doing a lot of nurturing with trying to figure out his belly situations and it's taking some time, but it's okay. I'm gonna keep working on it and we'll sort it out eventually. And I've had times like that with money where I've been like, oh my God, this is like taking forever. But eventually it gets sorted out, right? And like that's where devotion comes in, being like, I told this dog that I would take care of him for his whole life, knowing that he would get older and sick one day. I've told money, I've told my business, I've declared to myself that I would do what it takes to have a healthy, overflowing relationship with my business and money. And sometimes that means going through a period of time where it's like, oh, this feels hard, this feels challenging, but I am devoted to this for many reasons, right? Okay. Amanda, were you going to say something? Because I saw you. Okay, great.
Yes. So I feel like the first, those two questions from Telegram kind of encapsulated the question that I sort of have. So I think this is going to be a ramble, and I'm sure there's going to be something else that you can like add to it. So, okay, this is around debt. I accumulated like from like 2020 to 2023 around like 70K in credit card debt through investing in my business. Like my pattern with credit cards up until like that point was I would always pay it off every month. Never paid a late fee, never paid interest. I was always like very spending within my means, racking up the points, like everything. And so all of this debt was accumulated as like investing in myself. And I saw it as like I'm basically going to college again, but I can't take out a student loan for online entrepreneurship, so I'm going to use the resources that I have, like credit cards. So I wasn't able to pay those, like keep up with the payments, and I was using them like to buy groceries and like it got like pretty bad. So I ended up going into like a credit card settlement. So I'm working with a company who's like they've just handled it all, and I love it because I don't have to talk to a single creditor. I know I can do that myself, but like I'm happy with their service. I'm happy to pay them. And at this point, like 2 years in, because I'm on like a 5-year plan, I thought when I went into it that like I would pay it off at an accelerated rate. This is what I told myself. Like it's going to feel so good to like pay double every month or to pay this off fast and just clear it so I can start like building credit again and start investing and just like at this point it's feeling really heavy and I'm feeling resentful of it. And based on my current flow, like where things are just kind of flowing in my life, it seems like it is easier for me to create like downward spiral type of results. And so with this resentment in the last couple of months, I haven't been able to make my payments. It's like I'm $1,000 short every month, and that's what my payment is every month. And it's like, well, that's the thing that's going to get cut. So like I'm just making these phone calls to them being like, sorry, I can't pay you this month. I need to pause for a month, and it's like so I'm in this kind of energy, and it goes back to that paradox of, on the one hand, I feel it's like the resentment, but also this like victim energy of, well, I shouldn't have like fallen for that marketing. Like these other, coaches shouldn't have said like you can have these kind of crazy results, or like what you mentioned, getting into that habit of just kind of overextending yourself to cultivate abundance. Like I shouldn't have fallen for that, whatever. The interest rate shouldn't have been so high. Just there's all kinds of like narratives. But then on the other side, I do genuinely feel like I'm grateful to have that resource because I learned so much. Like I did get the equivalent of a 4-year degree in, entrepreneurship, social media, marketing, the whole thing. And it has served me, and I know it is going to work. But yeah, it's just like this kind of funky place of like the dominant feeling is I don't want to pay this. And it doesn't have anything to do with like I'm happy with the service, I'm happy with the company, I'm happy to pay their fees, but I just want the debt to be gone because it feels like heavy and shitty and I don't want to pay it. So it kind of I almost feel like a small child being like, "No, I'm not going to. You can't make me," you know?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I gotcha. I gotcha. Okay. So what I would say about this is I also want to say too, okay, so you have your pathway. I want to put it out there for everyone that when it comes to paying off debt, like there's a lot of options. There's these options. In Wealthy, I have like a whole train. I actually have it in Wealthy and I have it in Get Rich as well. Um, that like this whole explanation of different ways that you can pay off debt. So there's a strategy to it and there's an energy to it. And again, like when a pattern changes, when a pattern is changing, when something is changing, again, there a lot of times there's this moment of being freaking done with it. And we have to have that awareness, and both will be coming up at the same time, usually, of like the inner child, the victim, the like frustrated one who's like, I don't want to do it. This happened to me, not for me. And those, it's not that those are wrong, right? And there's also the part of us that's like, great, this clearly just means that I'm done and I'm ready to change it. And I'm going to rise up and I'm going to do that. And so to me, this just shows me, great, you're changing it. You're changing it. This is changing. Okay. The energy work and like the shifting around and reframes that I feel like help with that a lot is continuing to practice and see where it served you. I know there'll be moments of feeling frustrated and feeling like, oh, I shouldn't have done that or shame or whatever. And this is why it's a practice. Continue coming back to actually, this is so normal. Most businesses go into debt in order to start their businesses. That is so normal. That is so normal. That is so normal. Actually, most businesses in the world are constantly operating with some debt. Now, it doesn't have to stay that way. Like you're running your kind of business is, yeah, you're running a business that is low, that has the potential to be low overhead, right? So, like, it doesn't have to stay that way, right? I think something that also helps when it comes to debt is us being like, oh, I can't do all of these other things, like enjoying my life, build wealth until the debt is paid off. And that does not have to be true. And again, all of this, like I would literally listen back to this, write down the things I say, and then like actually feel them in your body and be like, okay, can I actually experience this as true? Or is there a part of me that's like, no? Another thing, oh, there was one other thing I wanted to say about like clearing up the energy of it. Um, Another thing that can happen when a lot of like when there's debt accumulated that we're done with is that there will be a part of us that's like, I don't want to make more money then because I don't want to pay the debt. So it's almost like pushing away making money because we don't want it to go toward the debt. And this is why it's really good to have this balance of being like, okay, I'm going to pay debt and I'm going to put some aside to build wealth, whether that be emergency funds, investings, and I'm going to enjoy. So it doesn't have to feel like this thing where it's like, oh my gosh, I have to punish myself and I have to like, and I have to, all of these things. Just having this agreement with yourself, great, I'm going to keep putting my energy into making more money. I'm done with accumulating debt. And again, sometimes that can take some iterations and like reestablishing the boundary, being like, wait, no. And then going to pay the debt, build wealth, enjoy the money all at the same time, which you can do. But what I'm hearing is that there's this, like, you were like, I don't want to pay it. That's where the sovereign, like, like badass comes in, where it's like, I chose this, and it helps me. Whether it be from some things were lessons, some things great. That's also normal in business too. It's so normal starting it's a risky baby. It's risky. And guess what? It gets better. But it's so normal when you're starting a business to buy things and invest in things that you're like, oh, that actually didn't help. Do you know how many people start multiple businesses again and again and again until they find one that actually works? That's also so normal. So we have to be like, oh, this is actually just how business works. And great, I'm going to pay my debt that I chose, and I'm going to keep making more money in my business and let it support me. Everything that I invested in, learn from it, let it support me, and enjoy my life. But there has to be a part of you that wants to pay the debt. Otherwise, you'll stop yourself from making money because you don't want it to go toward debt.
I think the solution here, like just what I'm kind of sensing in the moment from this conversation, is that I need to focus on going big, like, and that's a completely like subjective thing. But when I imagine my last $1,000 for the month going towards this debt, I don't want to pay it. But when I imagine that that $1,000 is 1/10 of the income I made this month,
Mhm.
then I feel like a baller paying it.
Yeah.
I'll pay $2,000,
Yeah.
you know? So it's kind of like it actually reminded me of this conversation I had yesterday with one of my friends through the, I won't explain like the context, but we were talking about like, government assistance programs like affordable housing or like food assistance or whatever it is. And this is a pattern that we've both noticed like come up again and again where people want to stay at that income level to qualify for the help.
Yep.
Because if they go over, they're in this gray area where it's like, I went over by like $50, so I don't get the help, but then I'm not actually at a level where I'm like abundant and supported. So it's like, I don't want to be in
Mhm.
that gray area. I want to just shoot way up to where it's like a non-issue in my consciousness and
Yeah.
in my body and my energy.
Yep. This is another one of the practices I teach in Wealthy that's like, if you take a moment to like write down all the ways that you actually benefit from the things that you hate and the ways you're suffering and the ways you're struggling and the ways that you're attached to it, there's a lot there. Like, oh, this helps me because I can like rely on this person or not have to take this responsibility or not have to pay these taxes or not have to pay this debt or et cetera, not have to pay more for healthcare or whatever it is, not be seen in these ways, not be judged in these ways because I'll like lose these people. Like it goes on and on and on. Um, that is a really powerful practice to do as well. And so that's where I feel like shifting to great, I want to pay this debt. I like am not the person who just holds debt. Like this is why like that done energy that you have can either be really uncomfortable or it can be really empowering where you're like, "Oh, I'm noticing that this is okay for a while and now it's not." And it doesn't mean that like you messed up. It doesn't, a lot of times what happens is something did have a purpose. And then when it no longer has a purpose, we're like, oh, that was wrong. It wasn't. It just served its purpose. And now you're done. Great. You're done with it. And it's just time to pay it off. And you can also do all the other things at the same time. So, yes, 100% to all of that. And guess what? That just takes making more money, which again is possible for you, is inevitable, is happening.
That was helpful. Thank you. I'm
Yeah.
gonna re-listen to this part specifically.
Great. Great. Yay. All right. Does anybody else have any questions? All right. So this is wrapping up Wealthy Week. I'm going to drop this replay in. If anybody has any questions, I'll answer questions from this weekend. So if anybody is listening to this and you're like, I have a question, drop it in the Telegram. I'll do like my last day for answering questions on Monday. And I might not answer like I like my weekends to be low key. I'm gonna be making content this weekend, but I don't do a lot of work on the weekends. I take weekends, is what I'll say. I'm a weekender. So I probably won't answer them till Monday. I'm just gonna go ahead and say that. I'm not gonna answer them till Monday. But drop any questions in there. I'll answer them Monday. Did you see my process? I just did you see me just process that and like um but yeah, this is where we're gonna wrap up. If you like what we're doing here, there are options. So Wealthy starts Monday. Wealthy, I love it. I'm obsessed with it. I'm really proud of it. That's what I'm gonna say. I'm really proud of it. Because again, like people like Ginny here who have been there and doing the work, it really creates like the kind of change. Like Ginny, I'll just speak for you. I feel like the kind of transformation you've had, you just have these moments every once in a while where you're like, oh yeah, I did that, and that's just who I am now. You're like, oh yeah, that's just my reality now. Like, oh yeah, like that's
When
just
you add up the amount of debt, and I was like, and it was like that was 2 years ago, right? A year ago, and it was
Mhm.
50,000. I was like, holy shit, I paid off $50,000 worth of debt.
And you're like, oh yeah, I just
Right?
did that. I
Right? Like
just
I hadn't realized putting it into that way, that felt really validating.
yeah. Yeah, sometimes I have to do this too. It's a really good practice for me where I'll take a moment and be like, "Oh wait, I was here and now I'm here.
Hmm.
Whoa. Hold up, wait up." So, yeah, this is the kind of thing that we do in Wealthy. I have really very intentionally designed it to be the kind of space where it's it's lasting transformation. It's something, and again, this is why it's lifetime access. You can come back again and again. We do the upkeep calls. We're doing a focus group where I'm going to teach you like all the stuff, and then we're going to keep the maintenance going, and then you have access to all the live future rounds. It is currently $600 off, and there's a one-on-one bonus. It starts Tuesday. So our first call of this focus session is Tuesday. I have all the information. You can see a butt ton of testimonials, results, frequently asked questions on the sales page. There's so much there. But if you're someone who's like, I really want to have transformation with money, come show up and then keep showing up. It's going to be really good. I'm really excited. And we have 3 different payment options. I decided with a money container, for me, it made a lot of sense to have. I don't do this for all my offers, but I do a equity based pricing model. So there's like, if you have experienced an unchosen financial hardship, you were in an abusive situation, or have a marginalized background, there's an option. There's an option like, okay, maybe you're catching up on debt, and then there's an option that's like, you know, you're in a really like supported place. Um, so there's options for you: pay in full or pay for a year or pay over the course of a year. If you like the conversations we're having around business as a whole and you want to work on your business as a whole, the Heart Led Business Collective is the space for you. It includes Wealthy. So it's honestly like what you get, it's a huge, like you're getting a lot for what you pay. It's $20,000. Like if you bought everything separately, the one-on-one work, the calls, the weekly masterminding calls, the different courses, it's like $20,000 worth of support, but it's $400 a month. But right now it's 10% off and includes a one-on-one bonus. And the people in there are really great. Some of them are here. Some of them are here, and they're like, it's just truly like, again, I'm going to pat myself on the back and just say I've done a really good job of attracting clients who are really great people, like just solid humans and doing really awesome work in the world, loving, like there's no like weird performance energy. There's no like weird catty anything. It's just like a solid, clean space. And I'm like, I'm really happy with it. And so we go into like the sales page includes all the different things that we go into. If you're wanting to work with me one-on-one, that is available as well. I have intensives and I have long-term. So all of that is there. Yeah. Oh yeah, I've kept in touch with friends from other offerings for years. They are the best humans. Yeah, I love that. I love that. I know. I know. Okay, you all. Well, I am really thankful for you. I'm really thankful for this space to be with you. The last thing I'll say is that if you have any, so the way sometimes people want to connect with me if they're interested in one of the offers, and that is welcome. The kind of sales I do is not, I don't do here's my standard. I hold a standard for this is actually going to be of service to my clients, and that this is that like you're going to benefit, and that I want you to make a decision from like choice and a regulated nervous system. So I don't do any pressury conversations. I don't do anything like that. I honestly feel like I don't want to or need to. Like my clients don't need that. But if it's going to serve you to come in, if you have any questions, sometimes people just want to express and share. That's welcome. If that's going to support your clarity and if you feel called to do that, my DMs are open. Or you can message me on Telegram. But yeah. Okay. I hope you all have a great day. I'll talk to you soon.
Feel better, Forrest?
Yeah, I got to clean up poop now.
Have fun with that.
Too. Okay. Bye. I'll end the call. It's classic. Okay. Bye.